Do you hear it too? The house was too quiet that night, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears like a weight. I lay in bed, the blanket pulled to my chin, staring at the ceiling where shadows danced in the faint glow of the street lamp outside. My new home, a creaky old place in the middle of nowhere, still felt like a stranger to me. Every groan of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind through the eaves, made me flinch. I told myself it was just the house settling, just the quirks of an old structure. But then I heard it. Giggling. Soft, high-pitched, like a child playing a game they didn't want you to know about. It came from the closet across the room. My heart stuttered. I don't have a baby. I don't have kids. I live alone. The sound stopped as quickly as it started, leaving the silence heavier than before. I waited, holding my breath, straining to hear it again. Nothing. Just the tick of the clock on the nightstand. I sat up, my bare feet brushing the cold hardwood floor. The closet door was closed, a slab of dark wood that looked ordinary enough in the daylight but now seemed to loom like a sentinel. I told myself it was nothing. A mouse, maybe? Or the house playing tricks. Old pipes, warped wood, something logical. But my skin prickled, and my pulse thudded in my ears. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it at the closet. The beam trembled slightly. I stood, my legs unsteady, and crossed the room. The floor creaked under my weight, loud in the stillness. My hand hovered over the closet knob, cold brass under my fingertips. The giggling came again, louder this time, bubbling up like water from a spring. It wasn't a happy sound. It was wrong somehow, like it didn't belong in this world. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I don't know how long I stood there, hand on the knob, listening to that eerie laughter. It felt like hours, but it was probably only seconds. My mind raced. I'd only moved into this house a week ago, a fixer-upper I bought cheap because no one else wanted it. The realtor had been vague about its history, muttering something about it being empty for years. I hadn't pressed her. I should have. I turned the knob and yanked the door open. The closet was empty. Just my coats hanging limply, a few boxes stacked in the corner, and the faint smell of dust. The giggling stopped the moment the door swung wide, as if someone had flipped a switch. I swept the flashlight beam across the space, checking every corner. Nothing. My shoulders sagged, relief mixing with unease. Maybe I'd imagined it. Stress, late nights, too much coffee. But as I stepped back, something brushed my ankle. Soft, like a feather or a strand of hair. I yelped, jumping back, and aimed the flashlight at the floor. There was nothing there. Just the worn floorboards, scratched and faded. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack Aesop. But I swear, something touched me. I slammed the closet door shut and stumbled back to bed, leaving the light on. Sleep was a lost cause. Every creak of the house felt like a whisper, every shadow a threat. I kept my phone clutched in my hand, the flashlight app still glowing, casting stark light across the room. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Houses make noises. Minds play tricks. But the memory of that giggle clung to me, sharp and cold, like a splinter under my skin. The next morning, I checked the closet again. Sunlight streamed through the window, making the room feel almost normal. The closet was still empty, still ordinary. I laughed at myself, a shaky sound, and closed the door. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, just out of sight. I spent the day unpacking boxes, trying to distract myself. The house was big, too big for one person, with high ceilings and narrow windows that let in slivers of light. It was charming, in a dilapidated way, but it felt off. Like it was holding its breath. That afternoon, I found the journal. It was tucked inside one of the boxes I'd brought from the attic, a small leather-bound book I didn't remember packing. The pages were yellowed, the ink faded but legible. It wasn't mine. The handwriting was neat, almost childlike, and the entries were dated decades ago. Most of it was mundane: grocery lists, weather reports, complaints about a leaky roof. But one entry stopped me cold. The laughter woke me again last night. It's coming from the walls now. I checked every room, every corner. There's nothing. I'm starting to think it's not real, but it feels so close. Like it's waiting for me. My hands shook as I read it. The date was from 1973. 50 years ago. I set the journal down, my mouth dry. The words echoed in my head, too close to what I'd heard last night. I told myself it was a coincidence. Old houses have stories, don't they? But my eyes kept darting to the closet door. That night, I locked the bedroom door and wedged a chair under the handle. I felt foolish, but I couldn't stop thinking about that journal. About the giggling. I left the light on again, the bulb casting harsh shadows on the walls. I must have dozed off at some point, because I woke with a start, my heart racing. The room was dark. The light was off. I hadn't touched it. Then I heard it again. The giggling. Louder, closer, like it was right beside me. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing. The room was empty. But the giggling didn't stop. It was everywhere now, echoing in my skull, filling the air with its unnatural cheer. I don't know how I made it through the night. I stayed awake, curled up in the corner of the bed, the flashlight aimed at the closet. The giggling faded just before dawn, leaving me hollowed out, exhausted. I didn't open the closet door that morning. I couldn't. Instead, I packed a bag and drove to a motel in town. I told myself I just needed a break, a night to clear my head. But deep down, I knew I was running. The motel room was small, sterile, safe. I sat on the lumpy bed, staring at my phone, debating whether to call someone. But who? My parents were gone, my friends too far away. And what would I say? That my house was haunted by laughter. They'd think I was losing it. Maybe I was. I opened the journal again, flipping through the pages. Another entry caught my eye. I tried to leave today. Packed my things, got as far as the driveway. But I heard it again in the car. It followed me. My stomach twisted. I closed the journal, my hands clammy. The room felt too small, the walls too close. I glanced at the motel closet, its door slightly ajar. And then I heard it. Faint, almost too soft to notice. Giggling. The motel room smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap air freshener, a sharp contrast to the musty charm of my new house. I sat on the edge of the bed, the journal open in my lap, its brittle pages threatening to tear under my trembling fingers. The giggling had followed me here, faint but unmistakable, seeping from the motel closet like a draft. I didn't dare open it. Instead, I focused on the journal, hoping it held answers, not more questions. The entry I'd read last night gnawed at me. Whoever wrote it, someone who lived in that house decades ago, had heard the same laughter. They'd tried to escape, just like me, and it followed them. I flipped to the next page, dated a week later. The handwriting was shakier now, the words jagged. I burned sage. I prayed. It didn't stop. It's louder now, like it's angry. I don't think it's human. My breath hitched. Not human. The words felt like a punch, stealing the air from my lungs. I set the journal down and paced the room. The motel was supposed to be a refuge, a place to think clearly, but my thoughts were a tangle of fear and doubt. Was I imagining things? Lack of sleep, stress, the move, it could all be messing with my head. But the journal wasn't my imagination. Neither was the giggling. I glanced at the closet door again. It was still ajar, a sliver of darkness peeking through. I grabbed a chair and jammed it under the handle, just like I'd done at home. It felt childish, but I didn't care. I needed answers. I opened my laptop and searched for the house's address. The results were sparse: county records, a few real estate listings from years ago, nothing helpful. Then I tried the name in the journal, Evelyn Marsh. A few clicks later, I found an obituary from 1974. Evelyn Marsh, age 34, died in her home. No cause of death listed, just a vague mention of unexpected circumstances. My stomach churned. She'd lived in my house. The obituary included a grainy photo of a woman with tired eyes and a tight smile. She looked ordinary, like someone you'd pass in the grocery store without a second glance. But she'd heard it too. The giggling. I read the journal entry again, my eyes lingering on her words. It's louder now, like it's angry. What was it? A ghost? A hallucination? Something worse? I didn't believe in ghosts, but I didn't believe in a lot of things before last night. I called the realtor. My hands were sweaty, slipping on the phone. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and professional. Hey, good to hear from you. How's the house? I didn't waste time on pleasantries. You didn't tell me about Evelyn Marsh. Silence. Then, I'm sorry, who? The woman who died in the house. In 1974. You didn't think that was worth mentioning? My voice was sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. She hesitated, and I could almost hear her flipping through her mental script. I'm not sure what you mean. The house has been empty for a long time. The previous owners didn't mention anything like that. I didn't buy it. Check your records. Evelyn Marsh. She lived there. She died there. Another pause. I'll look into it, but I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Old houses have histories, you know? If you're having second thoughts. I'm not having second thoughts. I snapped. I just want to know why you didn't tell me. She promised to call me back, but I knew she wouldn't. I hung up, my hands shaking. The journal sat on the bed, its worn cover staring at me like an accusation. I picked it up and flipped to another entry. I saw it last night. Just a shadow, but it moved. It was small, like a child, but its eyes, they weren't right. I locked myself in the bathroom until morning. My heart pounded. A shadow. A child. I thought of the giggle, high and unnatural, and my skin crawled. I couldn't stay in the motel forever. I had to go back, figure out what was happening. But the thought of returning to that house made my chest tight. I packed my bag, leaving the journal on the bed. I'd come back for it later. Or maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I'd burn it and be done with it. The drive back was a blur. The countryside rolled by, fields of dying grass under a gray sky. The house came into view, its sagging porch and peeling paint looking more sinister than quaint. I parked in the driveway and sat there, gripping the steering wheel. The windows stared down at me, dark and empty. I didn't want to go inside. But I did. The front door creaked as I pushed it open, the air inside thick with dust. Everything was as I'd left it, boxes half unpacked, furniture draped in sheets. I went straight to the bedroom, my footsteps echoing in the quiet. The closet door was closed. I stood in front of it, my hand hovering over the knob. My phone's flashlight was ready, but I didn't turn it on. Not yet. I opened the door. The closet was empty, just like before. Coats, boxes, dust. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Then I saw it, a small, smudged handprint on the inside of the door. It was too small to be mine, too fresh to be old. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the door frame to steady myself. The giggling started again, soft and teasing, coming from behind me. I spun around, the flashlight beams slicing through the room. Nothing. Just the bed, the nightstand, the clock ticking too loudly. The sound stopped, but my heart didn't. It was here. Whatever it was here with me. I backed out of the room, my eyes darting to every shadow. The journal's words echoed in my mind. It followed me. I locked the front door behind me and got back in my car. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay. Not with that sound, that handprint, that thing. As I pulled onto the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The house looked smaller, almost harmless. But something moved in the upstairs window. A shadow, small and quick, gone before I could be sure. The giggling followed me down the road. I didn't know where to go, so I drove to the town library. It was a small, red brick building at the edge of Main Street, its windows cloudy with age. The librarian, an older woman with glasses perched on her nose, glanced up as I walked in. I must have looked like a mess, hair tangled, eyes wild, but she just smiled and went back to her book. I was grateful for that. I wasn't ready to explain myself. The library smelled of old paper and wax polish, a comforting contrast to the dread that clung to me. I found a computer in the corner and started searching. Evelyn Marsh. My house's address. Anything that might explain what was happening. The obituary I'd found earlier was still the only solid hit, but I dug deeper, scouring local archives and historical records. My hands shook as I typed, the memory of that handprint burning in my mind. I found a newspaper article from 1973, buried in a digitized archive. Local woman hospitalized after breakdown. It was about Evelyn. The article was short, vague, but chilling. She'd been found wandering the streets at night, barefoot, muttering about the laughter that wouldn't stop. She was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, but there was no follow-up. The obituary a year later filled in the rest. My stomach twisted. I kept scrolling, hoping for more. Another article mentioned the house, but not Evelyn. It was from the 1980s, about a family who moved out after a few months, claiming the house was unlivable. No details, just a passing mention in a piece about the town's declining real estate market. I leaned back in the chair, my head spinning. This wasn't just me. Something was wrong with that house. I thought about the journal, tucked safely in my bag. I hadn't wanted to bring it, but leaving it behind felt like abandoning a piece of the puzzle. I pulled it out and flipped through the pages again. Evelyn's entries grew more frantic over time. It's not just laughter anymore. It watches me. I see it in the corners, small and dark, like a child but not a child. I lock the doors, but it's inside. It's always inside. My mouth went dry. I looked around the library, half expecting to hear that giggle again. The room was quiet, just the hum of the heater and the soft rustle of pages. I approached the librarian. Her name tag read, Margaret. I cleared my throat, unsure how to start. Hi, I'm doing some research on an old house in town. Do you have any records about property history? Or maybe local legends? Margaret raised an eyebrow, but her smile was kind. Old houses have a lot of stories around here. What's the address? I told her, and she tapped her chin, thinking. That place has been empty on and off for years. Folks say it's bad luck, but you know how small towns are. Every old house has a ghost story. I forced a smile. Anything specific about that one? She shrugged and pointed me to the local history section, a single shelf of dusty binders and faded books. I thanked her and started digging. Most of the records were boring, tax documents, land deeds, nothing useful. But one binder labeled Town Miscellany had a handwritten note tucked between the pages. It was undated, unsigned, but the words made my blood run cold. The Marsh house is cursed. The laughter never stops. Don't stay too long. I stared at the note, my heart pounding. The Marsh house. My house. I slipped the note into my pocket, feeling like a thief, and kept searching. Another record mentioned a fire in the 1920s that damaged part of the house. No one died, but the cause was unknown. I wondered if it was connected. Fire, laughter, shadows, what was I dealing with? The library closed at 5, and Margaret gently shooed me out. I sat in my car, the journal and the note on the passenger seat. The sun was setting, painting the sky a bruised purple. I didn't want to go back to the house, but I couldn't keep running. I needed to know what Evelyn knew, what she saw. I drove to a coffee shop instead, ordering a black coffee I didn't drink. The journal was my only lead, so I read it again, page by page. One entry stood out, dated a month before her death. I tried to talk to it. I asked what it wanted. The laughter stopped for a moment, and I thought it was gone. But then it whispered my name. It knows me. My hands trembled so badly I spilled coffee on the table. A whisper. I hadn't heard that yet, but the thought of it made my skin crawl. I drove back to the house as night fell. The windows were black, reflecting the moonlight. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the front door. The journal was in my lap, its weight heavier than it should have been. I didn't want to go inside, but I had to. I couldn't let it win. I grabbed a flashlight from the glove compartment, a heavy, metal one, more like a weapon than a light. The front door creaked as I opened it, the sound too loud in the silence. The air inside was cold, stale, like the house hadn't been breathed in for years. I went to the bedroom, my footsteps slow and deliberate. The closet door was closed. I didn't open it. Instead, I sat on the bed, the journal open in front of me, and waited. The giggling started just after midnight. It was soft at first, like a distant echo, but it grew louder, closer, until it felt like it was coming from inside the walls. I gripped the flashlight, my knuckles white. The room was dark, the moonlight barely reaching the corners. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint but clear. My name. The whisper of my name hung in the air, sharp and cold, like a blade against my skin. I sat frozen on the bed, the flashlight's beam shaking in my hand. The giggling followed, bubbling up from nowhere and everywhere, filling the room with its eerie cheer. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to run, to bolt out the door and never look back, but my legs wouldn't move. The journal lay open beside me, Evelyn's frantic words staring up at me like a warning I was too stubborn to heed. "Who's there?" My voice cracked, barely a whisper itself. The giggling stopped, abrupt, like a radio switched off. The silence was worse. It pressed against me, thick and suffocating. I swept the flashlight across the room, the beam catching the edges of furniture, the glint of the closet's brass knob. Nothing moved. But I felt it. Something was here, watching, waiting. I forced myself to stand, my legs wobbly, and took a step toward the closet. The floor creaked under my weight, the sound too loud, too real. My hand hovered over the knob, my breath shallow. I didn't want to open it. Every instinct screamed to leave it alone, to get out of the house and never come back. But I couldn't keep running. I had to know. I yanked the door open. The closet was empty, just like before. Coats, boxes, the faint smell of dust. but the handprint was still there, small and smudged on the inside of the door. My stomach lurched. I reached out, my fingers brushing the mark. It was cold, sticky, like it had just been made. I stumbled back, my heart in my throat. The giggling started again, louder, sharper, like it was laughing at me. It came from behind the boxes in the closet's corner. I aimed the flashlight, my hands shaking so badly the beam danced across the walls. The boxes looked ordinary, cardboard and faded, but something about them felt wrong, like they were hiding something. I knelt down, my knees pressing into the cold floor, and pulled the top box away. Underneath was a small wooden chest, no bigger than a shoebox, its surface carved with strange, swirling patterns. I'd never seen it before. It wasn't mine. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside was a bundle of cloth, yellowed with age, wrapped around something hard. The giggling stopped, the silence sudden and heavy. I unwrapped the cloth, my hands moving on their own. It was a doll. A small, porcelain doll with cracked skin and empty black eyes. Its dress was tattered, its hair matted and gray. My skin crawled. There was something wrong with it, something beyond its broken appearance. It felt alive, like it was staring back at me. I dropped it, the doll clattering to the floor. The giggling exploded around me, so loud it hurt my ears, echoing inside my skull. I scrambled back, knocking over a box, my flashlight falling from my hand. The beam spun across the room, casting wild shadows. The doll lay where it fell, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. I couldn't breathe. The air was too thick, too cold. My name whispered through the room again, soft and close, like a breath on my neck. I grabbed the doll and stuffed it back into the chest, slamming the lid shut. The giggling faded, but not completely, like it was waiting just out of reach. I dragged the chest out of the closet, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I didn't know what I was doing, only that I had to get it out of the house. I stumbled down the stairs, the chest clutched to my chest, and threw it into the trunk of my car. I drove to the edge of town, to a field far from the house. The chest sat in the passenger seat, silent but heavy, like it was watching me. I stopped the car and grabbed a shovel from the trunk, one I'd bought for yard work I never got around to. The ground was hard, half frozen, but I dug. My arms ached, my breath fogged in the cold night air. The giggling started again, faint, coming from the chest. I dug faster, dirt flying, my heart pounding. When the hole was deep enough, I threw the chest in and covered it with dirt. The giggling stopped. I stood there, panting, staring at the patch of earth. The night was quiet, just the rustle of dry grass in the wind. I felt lighter, like a weight had lifted, but I didn't trust it. I got back in the car and drove home, the shovel rattling in the trunk. The house was dark when I returned. I left the lights off, too tired to care. I collapsed onto the couch, the journal still upstairs, forgotten for now. Sleep came fast, heavy, dreamless. I woke to sunlight streaming through the living room window. The house felt different, warmer, like it had finally exhaled. I climbed the stairs to the bedroom, hesitant but hopeful. The closet door was closed. I opened it, holding my breath. Empty. No handprint, no giggling, no whispers. Just my coats and boxes, bathed in morning light. But as I turned away, something caught my eye. A faint smudge on the floor, barely visible. I knelt down, my heart sinking. It was another handprint, smaller than the last, pressed into the wood like a brand. The air grew cold. The giggling started again. The handprint on the floor stared up at me, small and dark, like a stain that wouldn't come out. The giggling was back, softer now, but sharper, like it was mocking my relief. I'd buried the doll, driven miles away, and still, it wasn't enough. My knees buckled, and I sank to the floor, my hands gripping the flashlight like a lifeline. The journal was still downstairs, but Evelyn's words echoed in my head. It's always inside. I thought I'd gotten rid of it. I thought I'd won. I stood, my legs shaky, and grabbed the journal from the couch. I needed to know how Evelyn fought it, if she fought it at all. Her final entries were chaotic, the handwriting sprawling across the pages like she was running out of time. I tried to burn the house down. It wouldn't let me. The flames went out, and the laughter grew louder. It's not just in the house. It's in me. My heart stopped. Burn the house. I couldn't do that. Could I? I looked around the bedroom, the morning light doing little to warm the room. The closet door was still open, the handprint glaring from the floor. I knelt and touched it. It was cold, like the one in the closet, but it smeared under my fingers, fresh and wet. My stomach twisted. I wiped my hand on my jeans, my breath coming in short gasps. The giggling grew louder, circling me, like it was playing a game. I ran downstairs and grabbed a bucket from the kitchen, filling it with water from the sink. I didn't know what I was doing, just that I had to do something. I poured the water over the handprint, scrubbing it with a rag. The smudge faded, but the giggling didn't stop. It was behind me now, then above me, then nowhere at all. I dropped the rag, my hands trembling. The flashlight was still in my grip, its weight grounding me. I thought about the doll, buried in that field. Maybe I hadn't buried it deep enough. Maybe it wasn't the doll at all. Evelyn's journal didn't mention one, just the laughter, the shadow, the whisper. I flipped to her last entry, dated the day before her death. It won't let me go. I see it everywhere now. It's small, like a child, but its face, it's not a face. I'm so tired. I just wanted to stop. My eyes burned. She didn't make it. Whatever this was, it broke her. I wasn't her. I wasn't going to break. I grabbed my keys and drove back to the field. The patch of dirt looked undisturbed, but I didn't trust it. I dug, the shovel biting into the earth, my arms burning with the effort. The chest was still there, the carvings glinting in the sunlight. I pried it open. The doll was inside, its black eyes staring up at me, its cracked face almost smiling. I grabbed it and threw it into the field, as far as I could. The giggling stopped for a moment, and I thought maybe, just maybe, it was over. But when I got back to the house, the handprint was there again. A new one, on the bedroom wall this time, small and perfect, like it had been waiting for me. The air grew heavy, the light dimmer, like the house was closing in. I sank to the floor, the journal falling from my hands. The giggling started again, low and teasing, like it knew it had me. I couldn't stay. I grabbed my bag, the journal, the flashlight, and ran to the car. The house loomed in the rearview mirror as I sped away, its windows dark and hollow. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't go back. The giggling followed me, faint at first, then louder, filling the car. My name whispered through the air vents, soft and cold, like a hand on my shoulder. I pulled over, my hands shaking on the wheel. The journal was on the passenger seat, its pages fluttering in the breeze from the open window. I opened it to a random page, desperate for something, anything to help me. Evelyn's words were a blur, but one sentence stood out. It feeds on fear. The more you run, the stronger it gets. My blood ran cold. I'd been running since the first night, feeding it, making it stronger. I closed the journal and stared at the road ahead. The giggling was quieter now, but it was still there, waiting. I thought about Evelyn, about how she tried to fight and lost. I wasn't her, but I didn't know how to fight it either. I gripped the flashlight, its metal warm from my hand. The doll was gone, the chest buried, but it wasn't enough. The whisper came again, my name curling through the air like smoke. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I started the car and drove, the road stretching into the distance, endless and empty. The giggling followed, softer now, but never gone. It was still with me. What my camera sees at 3 a.m. The house was too quiet that night. Not the usual quiet, where the hum of the refrigerator or the distant bark of a neighbor's dog filled the gaps. This was a heavy, suffocating silence, like the air itself was holding its breath. I sat on the couch, my laptop balanced on my knees, scrolling through the security footage from the night before. The grainy black and white video flickered, showing the front porch, the backyard, the hallway. Nothing unusual. Just my house, still and empty, bathed in the pale glow of moonlight. Then I saw it. At 3:02 a.m., the camera in the living room caught movement. A figure shuffled across the screen, slow and deliberate, like a puppet with half its strings cut. My heart lurched. The figure was me. But it couldn't be. I don't sleepwalk. Never have. Yet there I was, or something wearing my face, moving through my house in the dead of night. I rewound the footage, my fingers trembling on the trackpad. The timestamp blinked, 3:02 a.m. There I was again, gliding across the living room, my head tilted at an odd angle, my arms limp at my sides. My eyes, open, unblinking, stared straight ahead, catching the camera's lens for a split second. They looked wrong. Hollow. Like two black coins pressed into dough. I shut the laptop and sat there, the silence pressing harder now. My house felt different, like it was watching me back. I glanced at the windows, half expecting to see my own face peering in from the dark. Nothing. Just the reflection of my living room, the lamp casting long shadows across the floor. I hadn't been sleeping well for weeks. Work was a grind, endless spreadsheets, meetings that dragged on, and a boss who seemed to think I could bend time to meet deadlines. I'd been staying up late, sipping coffee that tasted like ash, trying to keep up. Maybe that was it. Stress. Exhaustion. My mind playing tricks. But the footage wasn't a trick. It was real, and it was me. Or something pretending to be me. I stood, my legs unsteady, and checked the locks on the doors. All secure. The windows were latched too. The house was sealed tight, but that didn't make me feel safer. If anything, it made the walls feel closer, like they were inching in when I wasn't looking. I grabbed my phone and texted my sister, Ellie. She lived an hour away, but she was the only one I could talk to about this without sounding unhinged. "Hey, can you come over tomorrow? Something weird happened," I typed. Her reply came fast. "You okay? What's weird?" I hesitated, my thumbs hovering over the screen. How do you explain something like this? "Just come over. I'll show you. Be there by noon," she texted back. I set the phone down and tried to shake off the unease. It was just one night, one weird moment. Maybe I'd been half asleep, moving on autopilot. People do strange things when they're tired. I told myself this, but the words felt flimsy, like tissue paper in a storm. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights on, every single one, until the house glowed like a beacon. I sat on the couch, the laptop closed but looming on the coffee table. I didn't dare open it again. Instead, I listened. For what, I wasn't sure. Footsteps. Breathing. Anything that wasn't supposed to be there. The house stayed silent, but it wasn't a comforting silence anymore. It felt like the pause before a scream. Morning came slowly, the sun creeping through the blinds like it was reluctant to show up. I made coffee, burned my toast, and tried to act normal. But my eyes kept darting to the corners of the room, to the shadows that seemed to linger a little too long. When Ellie arrived, her knock was a relief, a sharp crack that broke the spell. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said, stepping inside. Her dark hair was pulled back, and she carried a reusable coffee cup, the kind she always had with her. "Not a ghost," I said, forcing a laugh. It came out wrong, brittle. "Come look at this." I opened the laptop and played the footage. Ellie leaned in, her brow furrowing as the video looped. She watched it 3 times, her coffee forgotten in her hand. "That's not you," she said finally, her voice quiet. "I mean, it's your body, but those movements. That's not how you move." "I don't sleepwalk," I said, as if saying it again would make it true. "I know." She looked at me, her eyes wide. "Have you checked the other cameras?" My stomach twisted. I hadn't. There were 3 others: backyard, hallway, and the one pointed at my bedroom door. I pulled up the feeds, my hands clumsy on the keyboard. The backyard camera showed nothing, just the empty patio and the swaying branches of the oak tree. The hallway was the same, dark, still, uneventful. Then I opened the bedroom feed. At 3:04 a.m., the door to my room opened. The figure, me, or whatever it was, stepped out. It moved differently here, more purposeful, like it knew exactly where it was going. It paused in the hallway, turning its head slowly, as if listening. Then it walked out of frame, toward the living room. Ellie grabbed my arm. "What is that?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said, my voice barely audible. "But it's in my house." We sat there, staring at the frozen image of the hallway. The figure was gone, but I could still feel it, like a weight in the air. Ellie stayed until evening, but she had to get back to her kids. She made me promise to call if anything else happened. I nodded, but I didn't want to make promises. Not when I didn't know what I was dealing with. That night, I set up my phone to record the living room. The security cameras weren't enough anymore. I needed to see it in real time, to know if it happened again. I propped the phone on the coffee table, angled to catch the whole room, and hit record. Then I sat on the couch, a kitchen knife in my lap, and waited. The hours crawled by. My eyes burned, but I didn't dare close them. The house was silent again, but it wasn't empty. I could feel it. Something was here, watching, waiting. Not me. Not quite. At 3 a.m., the air changed. It grew heavy, like a storm was about to break. I gripped the knife tighter, my knuckles white. The phone's screen glowed faintly, recording the empty room. Then, from the hallway, a sound. Soft, deliberate. A footstep. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Another step. Closer now. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would drown out everything else. The living room doorway loomed dark, a rectangle of shadow. And then, in the corner of my eye, I saw it. A figure. Standing just out of the phone's frame. It wasn't moving. It wasn't breathing. But it was watching me. I didn't look at it. I couldn't. If I did, I was afraid I'd see my own face staring back. The figure didn't move. It stood there, just beyond the glow of the lamp, a silhouette carved from the dark. My hand trembled on the knife, the blade catching the light in a thin, sharp gleam. I wanted to scream, to demand what it was, but my throat was dry, my voice locked away. The phone kept recording, its tiny red light a steady pulse in the corner of my vision. I don't know how long we stayed like that, me, frozen on the couch, and the thing, watching from the doorway. Seconds stretched into minutes, each one heavier than the last. Finally, I forced myself to speak. "Who are you?" My voice cracked, barely a whisper. No answer. just the weight of its presence, pressing against me like a cold tide. Then, slowly, it stepped back into the hallway. The shadows swallowed it whole. I heard one more footstep, then nothing. Silence rushed in, thick and suffocating. I didn't move for a long time. The knife was still in my hand, my fingers aching from gripping it so hard. The phone's battery was low now, the screen dimming. I reached for it, my arm heavy, and stopped the recording. My hands shook as I opened the video. The living room looked normal at first. The couch, the coffee table, the lamp casting its soft glow. Then, at the edge of the frame, something shifted. Not me. Not quite. It was there for only a second, a blur of movement, too fast to make out details. But it was enough to make my stomach churn. I played it again, slowing the video down. Frame by frame I watched. The figure appeared, just as I'd seen it, standing in the doorway. Its face was obscured, but its posture was wrong, too stiff, too still. Like it wasn't breathing. Like it didn't need to. I couldn't stay in the living room anymore. I grabbed the knife and the phone and moved to the kitchen, where the lights were brighter, harsher. The fluorescent bulbs buzzed overhead, a sound that was both annoying and comforting. At least it was something real, something normal. I set the phone on the counter and opened the fridge, not because I was hungry but because I needed to do something, anything, to keep my hands busy. The clock on the microwave read 4:17 a.m. Dawn was still hours away. I thought about calling Ellie again, but what could she do? Drive back in the middle of the night? Tell me I was losing it. Instead, I made tea, the kettle's whistle cutting through the quiet like a warning. I sat at the kitchen table, the mug warming my hands. The knife lay beside me, its blade reflecting the overhead light. I kept glancing at the doorway, half expecting the figure to appear again. It didn't. But the feeling lingered, that sense of being watched, of not being alone. When the sun finally rose, it didn't bring the relief I'd hoped for. The house looked the same, my couch, my bookshelves, my life. But it felt wrong, like a stage set built to trick me. I checked the security footage again, hoping I'd missed something, some clue that would explain it all. The bedroom camera showed the same thing as before, the door opening, the figure stepping out, moving with that eerie purpose. I decided to check the mirrors. I don't know why. Maybe because I'd read somewhere that mirrors could show things cameras missed. My house had 3, one in the bathroom, one in the hallway, and a small one in my bedroom. I started with the bathroom, flicking on the light and staring at my reflection. My face looked tired, pale, with dark circles under my eyes. But it was me. I leaned closer, searching for anything off, anything that didn't belong. Nothing. Just my own eyes staring back, bloodshot and scared. The hallway mirror was next. It was old, framed in chipped wood, a hand-me-down from my mom. I stood in front of it, my reflection sharp in the morning light. But as I turned away, I caught something, a flicker, like a shadow moving behind me. I spun around, heart racing. The hallway was empty. I told myself it was nothing. A trick of the light. My mind was frayed, jumping at shadows. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror had shown me something real, something the cameras couldn't catch. The bedroom mirror was last. It was small, propped on my dresser, angled to catch the light from the window. I stood in front of it, holding my breath. My reflection stared back, but it felt distant. Like I was looking at a stranger wearing my skin. I reached out, my fingers brushing the glass. It was cold, colder than it should have been. Then I saw it. In the reflection, behind me, a shape. Not clear, not solid, but there. A smudge of darkness, like smoke curling in the air. I turned, but the room was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, it was gone. I backed away, my heart hammering. The knife was still in the kitchen, but I didn't want to leave the room. Not yet. I sat on the bed, staring at the mirror, waiting for it to show me something else. It didn't. But I knew it wasn't over. Ellie called around noon, her voice bright but edged with worry. "You okay? You didn't text me back." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." "You don't sound fine." "I'm coming over tonight." No arguments. I didn't argue. I didn't want to be alone again. Not with that thing in my house, wearing my face, moving through my mirrors. I spent the day checking locks, closing curtains, avoiding reflective surfaces. But I couldn't avoid the truth. Whatever it wasn't just in the footage anymore. It was here, with me, and it was getting closer. Ellie arrived just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky a bruised purple. Her car crunched on the gravel driveway, and I opened the door before she could knock. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing. "You look worse than this morning," she said, stepping inside. She carried a duffel bag, like she was planning to stay the night. I didn't argue. I didn't want her to leave. "Thanks," I said, trying to smile. It felt like a grimace. We sat in the kitchen, the knife still on the table, its blade catching the light. I told her about the figure in the doorway, the phone recording, the mirror. Her face grew paler with every word, but she didn't interrupt. When I finished, she leaned back, her coffee cup untouched. "That's not normal," she said finally. "Not even close." "I know." My voice was barely above a whisper. "What do I do?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood and started pacing, her boots clicking on the tile floor. "First, we're not sleeping here tonight. We'll go to my place. Pack a bag." I nodded, but the idea of leaving felt wrong. Like abandoning the house would mean letting that thing win. Still, I grabbed a backpack and stuffed it with clothes, my toothbrush, my phone charger. Ellie watched, her arms crossed, her expression tight. "You're not telling me everything," she said as I zipped the bag. "What else happened?" I hesitated. There was something I hadn't mentioned, something I noticed in the mirror that morning. Not just a shadow, but a feeling, a pull, like the glass was trying to draw me in. I didn't know how to explain it without sounding like I'd lost my mind. "Nothing," I said. "Just nerves." She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. We locked up the house, double-checking every window and door. The air outside was cool, sharp with the smell of pine. I glanced back at the house as we climbed into her car. The windows were dark, but I could have sworn I saw movement in one of them. A flicker, like a curtain shifting. Ellie's place was loud, chaotic in the best way. Her kids, Mia and Lucas, were sprawled on the living room floor, arguing over a board game. Her husband, Tom, was in the kitchen, stirring something that smelled like garlic and tomatoes. It was normal, warm, alive. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. But it didn't last. That night, I slept on the couch, a borrowed blanket pulled up to my chin. The house creaked and settled, but every sound made me jump. I kept my phone close, the screen dark but tempting. I wanted to check the security app, to see if the cameras had caught anything. I didn't. I was too afraid of what I might find. Sleep came in fits, broken by dreams of mirrors and shadows. In one, I was standing in my hallway, staring into the old mirror. My reflection smiled, but I wasn't smiling. It reached out, its fingers pressing against the glass from the other side. I woke with a start, my heart racing, the blanket tangled around my legs. Morning brought coffee and pancakes, but the unease lingered. Ellie noticed. She pulled me aside while the kids were watching cartoons. We need to figure this out, she said. You can't keep running from it. I'm not running, I said, sharper than I meant. I don't know what it is. Then we go back. We check the cameras, the mirrors, everything. We don't stop until we know. I didn't want to go back. The thought of stepping into that house again made my skin crawl. But Ellie was right. Ignoring it wouldn't make it go away. Whatever was in my house, it wasn't leaving. And it wasn't done with me. We drove back that afternoon. The house looked ordinary in the daylight, but I knew better. Inside, the air was stale, like it hadn't moved in days. Ellie went straight for the laptop, pulling up the security footage from the night before. I stood behind her, my hands clenched into fists. The living room camera showed nothing at first. Just the empty room, the couch where I'd sat, the phone I'd left recording. Then, at 3:03 a.m., the figure appeared. It moved differently this time, faster, more deliberate. It crossed the room, paused, and turned toward the camera. Its face, my face, was clear now. The eyes were empty, like holes punched in a mask. Ellie gasped, her hand covering her mouth. That's not you, she whispered. I know, I said, my voice shaking. But it's using my face. We checked the other cameras. The hallway showed the figure moving toward the bedroom, its steps silent but steady. The bedroom camera caught it standing in the doorway, staring at the empty bed. It didn't move for a long time, just stood there, its head tilted like it was listening. Then it turned and walked toward the mirror. The footage cut out. We sat in silence, the laptop screen dark. Ellie reached for my hand, her fingers cold. We need help, she said. This isn't something we can handle alone. I nodded, but I wasn't sure who could help. A priest? A psychic? The police? None of them would believe me. I barely believed it myself. But one thing was clear. The thing in my house wasn't just a shadow or a trick of the light. It was real, and it was getting bolder. That night, we stayed at Ellie's again. But I knew we couldn't keep running. The figure wasn't just in my house. It was in me, somehow, tied to me. And sooner or later, I'd have to face it. Ellie wouldn't let me go back alone. She insisted on coming with me, her face set in that stubborn way I knew too well. We drove to my house in the morning, the sky heavy with clouds that promised rain. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on us, warning us to turn back. We didn't. Inside, the house was colder than it should have been. The heater was on, but it didn't seem to matter. The chill seeped into my bones, making my hands shake as I set my bag down. Ellie noticed, but she didn't say anything. She just started checking the windows and doors, like she was securing a fortress. We need to figure out what it wants, she said, her voice steady despite the tension in her shoulders. It's not just showing up for no reason. I nodded, but I had no idea where to start. The cameras had shown me, or whatever it was, moving through the house, standing in doorways, staring into mirrors. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, like it was looking for something. Or someone. We started with the mirrors. The bathroom one was clean, its surface reflecting nothing but my tired face and Ellie's determined frown. The hallway mirror was the same, though I avoided looking at it for too long. The bedroom mirror was last. I stood in front of it, my reflection staring back, and felt that pull again. Like the glass was alive, tugging at me, whispering for me to step closer. Do you feel that? I asked Ellie, my voice barely audible. She frowned, stepping closer to the mirror. Feel what? I didn't know how to explain it. The air around the mirror was different, heavier, like it was charged with something I couldn't see. I reached out, my fingers hovering an inch from the glass. The surface rippled, just for a second, like water disturbed by a stone. Ellie grabbed my wrist. "Don't," she said, her voice sharp. "Something's wrong with that thing." I pulled my hand back, my heart pounding. The mirror looked normal now, but I knew what I'd seen, what I'd felt. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was a door, and something was on the other side. We moved to the living room, where the security cameras were still set up. I opened the laptop and checked the footage from the night before. The figure was there again, moving through the house at 3:04 a.m. This time, it didn't just stand in doorways. It went to the bedroom mirror, pressed its hands against the glass, and stayed there, motionless, for nearly an hour. The footage was grainy, but I could see its face, my face, twisted in a way that made my skin crawl. It wasn't smiling, wasn't frowning. It was just empty. Ellie leaned closer, her breath catching. "What is it doing?" "I don't know," I said, my voice shaking. "But it's not me." We watched the footage loop, the figure standing at the mirror, its hands pressed flat against the glass. Then, just before the footage cut out, it turned its head. Straight toward the camera. Straight toward us. I slammed the laptop shut. "We need to get rid of that mirror," I said. Ellie nodded, but her face was pale. "Yeah. But what if that doesn't stop it?" I didn't have an answer. We wrapped the mirror in a blanket, careful not to touch the glass, and carried it to the garage. The weight of it felt wrong, heavier than it should have been, like it was resisting us. We locked the garage door and wedged a chair under the handle for good measure. Back inside, the house felt different. Not safer, just quieter. Like it was waiting. Ellie stayed close, her hand on my arm as we checked the other mirrors again. Nothing. No ripples, no shadows, no pull. But I didn't trust it. I didn't trust anything in this house anymore. That night, we stayed in the living room, the lights on, the knife on the coffee table. Ellie fell asleep around midnight, her head resting on the arm of the couch. I couldn't sleep. My eyes kept drifting to the hallway, to the empty space where the mirror had been. I told myself it was gone, locked away, but I could still feel it. That pull, that weight, like the glass was calling me back. At 3 a.m., the air shifted. It was subtle at first, a slight chill that made the hairs on my arms stand up. Then I heard it, a soft, deliberate sound, like footsteps in the hallway. I grabbed the knife, my heart pounding. Ellie stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "What is it?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The sound came again, closer now, just beyond the living room doorway. I stood, the knife trembling in my hand, and stepped toward the hall. The air was thick, heavy with that same charged feeling I'd felt by the mirror. And then I saw it. Not in the hallway, but in the reflection of the TV screen, dark and silent across the room. A figure, standing behind me. Its face was mine, but its eyes were wrong, black, endless, like they could swallow me whole. I turned, but the hallway was empty. When I looked back at the TV, the figure was gone. Ellie was on her feet now, her face pale. "We're leaving," she said, grabbing her keys. "Right now." I didn't argue. We grabbed our bags and ran to the car, the house looming behind us like a living thing. As we drove away, I glanced back, half expecting to see my own face in the window, watching us go. Ellie's house was a refuge, but it didn't feel like enough. The kids were at school, Tom was at work, and the quiet of her living room only made me more aware of the thing I'd left behind. My house was an hour away, but it felt closer, like it was following me, its shadow stretching across the miles. Ellie sat across from me, her laptop open, searching for answers. She typed furiously, pulling up articles about sleepwalking, doppelgangers, hauntings, anything that might explain what was happening. Nothing fits, she said, slamming the laptop shut. This isn't just stress or some medical thing. It's something else. I nodded, my hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had gone cold. I hadn't told her about the TV screen, about seeing the figure there. I didn't want to scare her more than she already was. But I could feel it, that same pull I'd felt by the mirror, like a hook in my chest, tugging me back to the house. We can't keep running, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It's not just in the house. It's tied to me. Ellie's eyes widened. What do you mean? I told her about the TV, about the figure's eyes, black and endless. She listened, her face pale, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. When I finished, she stood and started pacing, her boots thudding softly on the hardwood floor. We need to go back, she said. We need to end this. I didn't want to. The thought of stepping into that house again made my stomach twist. But I knew she was right. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't going to stop. It wasn't going to let me go. We drove back that afternoon, the sky dark with storm clouds. Rain started to fall as we pulled into the driveway, fat drops splattering against the windshield. The house looked the same, but it felt alive, like it was waiting for us. We grabbed flashlights and the knife, though I wasn't sure what good it would do. Inside, the air was heavy, thick with the smell of damp wood and something else, something metallic, like old blood. We started in the living room, checking the cameras, the windows, the doors. Everything was locked, just as we'd left it. But the house didn't feel empty. It felt crowded, like there were eyes in every corner, watching, waiting. We moved to the garage, where the mirror was still wrapped in its blanket. Ellie hesitated, her hand on the door. You sure about this? She asked. No, I said. But we don't have a choice. We opened the door. The mirror was there, leaning against the wall, the blanket still in place. But the air around it was wrong, charged, like static before a lightning strike. I stepped closer, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The blanket slipped, just a little, revealing a corner of the glass. It glinted in the beam of light, and for a second, I saw something move in it. Not my reflection. Something else. Ellie grabbed my arm. Don't look at it, she said, her voice sharp. But I couldn't look away. The glass was pulling me again, stronger now, like it was hungry. I took another step, my flashlight dropping to the floor. The beam spun, casting wild shadows across the walls. Ellie was shouting now, pulling at me, but her voice sounded far away, like it was coming from underwater. The blanket fell away completely, and the mirror was bare, its surface smooth and dark. My reflection was there, but it wasn't alone. Behind me, in the glass, was the figure. Its face was mine, but twisted, its eyes black voids that seemed to pulse with something alive. It raised a hand, pressing it against the glass from the other side. I reached out, my fingers brushing the mirror. It was cold, so cold it burned. The figure smiled, a slow, unnatural stretch of its lips. And then I felt it, a tug, not just in my chest but in my whole body, like I was being pulled through the glass, into whatever was on the other side. Ellie yanked me back, her arms strong around my waist. I stumbled, the connection breaking, and fell to the floor. The mirror stayed still, but the figure was gone. The garage was silent, the air heavy with the smell of rain. We're burning it, Ellie said, her voice shaking. The mirror, the cameras, all of it. I nodded, too shaken to speak. We dragged the mirror outside, the rain soaking us as we hauled it to the backyard. Ellie found a can of gasoline in the garage, and we doused the mirror, the blanket, anything that felt wrong. The flames caught fast. licking up the sides of the glass, black smoke curling into the sky. But as the fire burned, I saw something in the flames. A shape moving, twisting, like it was trying to crawl out. My face, but not mine. Its eyes locked onto me, and for a moment, I felt that pull again, stronger than ever. Ellie grabbed my hand, pulling me back toward the house. "It's over," she said, but her voice was unsteady. I wanted to believe her. But as we stood there, watching the fire consume the mirror, I knew it wasn't over. The figure was still out there, somewhere, wearing my face. And it wasn't done with me yet.